Back to Market on Close. I'm Marley Caden. It's time for Overlook Stocks now. Hotel operator Monarch Casino and Resorts is rallying to new all-time highs today after its strong second quarter earnings. To tell us more, we'll bring in Ben Watson, our Senior Manager of Trading Services here at Charles Schwab. Now, Ben, I have to be honest, I wasn't familiar with Monarch Casino and Resorts, but they have had quite a day. When I looked at their charts, up 20% just today.
Sure, and you're right, Marley. I had to actually look them up as well, and I guess that's the reason why they're an overlooked stock is that, you know, if you have to go out and find them, nobody's looking at them. But investors certainly looking today after this earnings announcement. But the stock had been a reasonably strong performer over the course of the last year, really kind of moving up from that $70 range up about 20 points into the $90 mark, kind of touching some of those areas of resistance, and not without cause. I mean, this is a company that has increased their net revenue 6.8% year over year. They've increased their net margin and adjusted margin 16.8% in the last quarter. So, I mean, it's got some good, solid fundamental perspective behind it, but it's also in a very competitive space, not only in the hotel space, but in the gaming space, and gaming takes across the board are down somewhat, and with a lot of other competition for the convention business, they are in some out-of-the-way places. So looking at the price of the stock here on this one-year daily chart, though, Marley, the big booming move to the upside out of this little bit of an ascending triangle, and I've drawn that in there with the resistance at that 90 mark, support down there at around the bottom on that April low at about 70. That gives us a 20-point target to the upside up around that 110. It blew through that, came back down today on this earnings announcement, but it is still holding kind of the midpoint of that range, that 105 level, and we'll see this on a shorter term chart. Really, I think kind of becomes the key for the technical perspective on this pattern on Monarch, Marley.
And, you know, as we're saying, you're saying that 105 level is key. You know, we popped up north of that 110, right now closing just below that 105, you know, 104.83. And they're getting some favorable coverage, it looks like, also from analysts, you know, responding to this as well with some price target increases.
For sure. Those price targets have been moving higher, although maybe a little bit of a trend to the downside in the last couple of adjustments. That being said, there are a couple of legal hangovers on this particular stock, given the fact that they've got a pending litigation with some developers, and that is about a $75 million overhang to revenue. But if we look at the shorter term chart here, I've got a 5-day, 5-minute chart in this next panel, and you can see the big kind of blow off top, this move to the upside on the earnings announcement. It had been relatively stable under that 90 resistance prior. You get the big move up, and then RSI again just starts to tail off. It's really interesting, though, going into the close today. I was watching this over the last 30 minutes or so prior to the close, and there was definitely some downward pressure. I drew in a diagonal trend line on the RSI. It blew down through there. And then as we got to the close, that 105 seemed to be the magnet. That may be the point where investors are pushing their chips into the table on this one, Marley.
You know, it's interesting, you know, as we look at the RSI on the chart, I have it off to the side here so that I can see it as well. You don't often see that pop with that heavy drop down below where we don't at least visit the line. You know, what do you think is the driver behind that? Is it as people looked more under the hood, they found things like these potential legal implications?
For sure. That's one. And I think that's maybe that impetus for a little bit of profit taking as opposed to staying with the bet and maybe parlaying it into some upward movement. But at the same time, again, that $90 resistance was a fairly strong level. Maybe a lot of investors had stepped in at or near that level, simply looking at clearing their positions off as the price moved above that level, and then maybe bleeding back in if there are some legs to this upward movement here.
Well, Ben, we appreciate you, as always, breaking it down for us and making those charts. We appreciate it. That's Ben Watson.